You are a car carrier which carries breakbulk. I always say we are a breakbulk carrier who can also carry cars.
Okay.
So you can also turn this around. We show this flexibility then on an inducement basis. So I always encourage the customers, don't assume we are only bound to our normal port network. We are willing to deviate the vessel.
This is Voices of Breakbulk Europe. It's Project Cargo Professionals. We are in Bremen for Voices of Breakbulk Europe, and today I am with Carsten Wendt, Wallenius Wilhelmsen. Carsten, thank you very much for having us over in your very nice office here.
Hello, Luke. Very welcome.
Carsten, for those who are not so familiar, tell us what role a RoRo operator plays in the Project Cargo ecosystem today.
Yeah, RoRo is certainly a big player in the breakbulk industry, although our bread and butter is cars and high and heavy, as you might know. We had some very interesting years after COVID, when, let's say, demand for cars and high and heavy was spiking. So we have seen, something which the RoRo industry has never seen before, like a high demand of cars and high and heavy all over the globe. All the major cargo segments, let's say in the mining, agriculture, and construction segment booming at the same time. And that was certainly, taking a lot of capacity, which led us to carry less breakbulk. But as shipping and trade goes in cycles, so those times have, let's say, slowed down a little bit, I would say at least in some parts of the world. And now this gives more opportunity again for breakbulk. And in a way we say, okay, we never been out of the business, but at least we have now much more opportunity to offer, let's say, breakbulk on RoRo vessels again.
Yeah, so I was interested to ask, as a company, how important is the breakbulk trade to the business? Or is that something that changes in cycles as well?
In theory, if you would have a constant flow of cargoes from the car and high and heavy market, you would not need breakbulk on RoRo vessels. But at the end of the day, it's good to have 3 cargo segments on your vessels, because then you can, of course, try to take a certain segment when the other one is down. So I would say cargo mix is key, especially when a segment slows down. We have vessels built for 25, 30 years with ram capacities averaging around 320 tons and with an entrance height of 6.50 meters. And I always say you don't need these vessels for carrying cars and trucks. You need these cars to carry breakbulk. So that is a clear sign that for us, it's a strategic segment we want to be in, and also where we want to grow over the next couple of years.
And tell us a bit about your role here in Bremen. I know traditionally that Germany and Japan were big markets for you for breakbulk. Is that still the case?
It's still the case. The biggest breakbulk market for us is still Japan, with the Japanese machine tool manufacturers. So still probably the biggest share we carry these days. But then also Europe, and especially Germany, traditionally very strong in machine tools, project cargos. So Germany plays a very important role, the German market, including Austria, or let's say mainland Europe. And that's why we're here in Bremen.
And you're heading up the sales efforts for breakbulk in Europe?
That's correct.
Okay. And as you said, you're huge car carriers, and obviously vehicles are very exposed to tariffs, trade policy changes. How do you deal with that? And when something like that happens and disrupts that business, does that make breakbulk more attractive to you?
Definitely, I would say, and that we talked about having the beauty of 3 cargo segments to choose from. I would say tariffs are teaching us a lesson in a way, or let's say geopolitical disruptions in general are teaching you a lesson that it's always good that you can, let's say, take your cargo base from different sources. Tariffs have affected our business on the Atlantic specifically. So we have seen a decline in demand of those volumes going to North America. And I would say the outcome remains to be seen, how much more this is influencing our business model. But also what we are seeing is a shift of, let's say, a sourcing shift from Europe to Asia. So, which also has a huge effect on the way we operate our vessels. Nowadays, we operate almost 80% of the fleet out of Asia and only 20% out of Europe. And this is a clear change from how it used to be 10 years ago.
So does that mean new customers, or are you following your customers as they change their manufacturing? And
yeah, we follow usually the customers, or we have to. So when you look at the car and high and heavy side, we see China as one of the biggest players these days. Just to give you an idea, China has ranked #1 car export country now with more than 6 million units on the export side. At the same time, they're reducing their imports by roughly 30% year on year. So you clearly can see there's a big shift now, let's say also for European OEMs exporting to China. So this has clearly an effect. And on the Breakbulk side, we see that especially for trades, let's say for Asia itself, or let's say when you look at markets like Australia, that's there you have these sourcing shifts that cargo, which let's say traditionally originated out of Europe and the US, is now originating from Asia. So in a way, we as a company, we have to adapt to these changes, and it's also then basically where you would employ your fleet.
And there's a lot of scrutiny on RoRo vessels in terms of fire risk, particularly around EVs. Talk about that and the risk as you see it, and if there is a risk, what steps you've taken to mitigate against that for your customers who might be concerned about that.
Fire risk, I would say, was always there. It's not in particular special for electric vehicles. Also, we used to have this risk for combustion engines, and maybe if you followed the news over the last couple of years, RoRo vessels maybe are more often on the news when fire happens. As a company, I would say the majority of our efforts we try to invest into fire prevention, because usually when there is something on fire, it's then very difficult to distinguish that fire.
Yeah.
So typically we try to prevent fire on happening. And so we have certain measures, for example, that we have a, let's say, maximum voltage on the electric vehicles when we load them. So it's typically 30%. So the batteries shall not be loaded with more than 30%. At the same time, we do not carry any used electric vehicles.
Oh, okay.
And when we carry combustion engine cars, let's say used cars, for example, we make sure that the battery, like the normal battery, is disconnected. So, and we really try by these measurements to limit the exposure and the risk as much as possible.
Right. Let's try and make the case for RoRo shipping when you've got project cargo. What's the most compelling reason for somebody to take a look at you guys when they've got something oversized or breakbulk cargo?
I mean, I usually say that to the breakbulk customers, when they refer to us, they say, you are a car carrier which carries breakbulk. I always say we are a breakbulk carrier who can also carry cars.
Okay.
So you can also turn this around. But jokes aside, I mean, first of all, you have very capable vessels. It's always under deck storage. It's a very safe operation because the cargo handling itself happens before the vessel even arrives in the port. So when you look at, let's say, a transfer of rail cars or a transformer, this happens in a very static, safe environment. For example, if you compare this with Lolo carriers, you're in the port, you have the crane, you have swell, you are exposed to weather and wind, which makes the operations, I would say, a little bit more difficult, or let's say could be even more dangerous. So that is certainly one of the biggest advantages. And then when you look at our network, I mean, we operate almost like a container line with a fixed route and port network, thanks to the car customers. We are also bound to, let's say, transit times and frequencies, and the breakbulk customers certainly benefit from this.
But on the other hand, project cargo is not always that predictable. So if you're on a fixed network, how flexible can you be for when a customer needs that for project cargo?
If you had asked me that question 2 years ago, I would say very unflexible. But now with the, let's say, reduced demand by the high and heavy car side, we have this flexibility sometimes. So we do call ports outside of our network. So, for example, we have now, just as an example, we have now just decided to take a shipment from China to Malaga in Spain, which is not part of our usual schedule. And we show this flexibility then on inducement basis. And we offer this. So I always encourage the customers, don't don't assume we are only bound to our normal port network. We are willing to deviate the vessel if the money is right.
Okay, so good message to customers. If you want it, just ask.
Exactly.
And I saw a post from Fracht. There was a huge piece, over 300 tons, a unit that you moved to Australia. Tell us about that shipment. I understand that was the biggest single cargo you've ever carried. Can you see that growing over time?
Yeah,
or
exactly.
is that as big as it gets?
I wish we have more opportunity to ship these kind of cargoes. The fact is that you don't really have those kind of units in the amount you want. I mean, to be frank, that gas was a generator shipment from Germany to
Brisbane, right?
To Brisbane,
Yeah.
And the weight was 334 tons. We are employing on that trade lane our biggest vessels in the fleet. They can take up to 500 tons on the ramp, and the entrance height is 7.1 meters. So you can certainly say this is our strongest product we have. And I would say, coming back to what we said earlier, it's the safe loading and discharging operation under deck with let's say, premium product, especially to Australia. That's, I think, one of the reasons Fracht chose us for the service. And yeah, we had a great collaboration, great loading and discharging. Everything went super smooth. And yeah, we would like to have more of those kind of shipments.
And talk to us about your fleet renewal, because I saw an interview a few years ago where you said that you were reluctant to place order for new buildings because you hadn't found a solution that was fitting with your sustainability goals. But that's since changed. So tell us about that and how that's moved on.
Yeah, we have ordered 14 vessels. The first of those 14 will now come into service end of 2026, so end of this year. All of those vessels will have hybrid engines, so they will be ready to take methanol as well as ammonia. I think a few years back, I think we couldn't really see where let's say the way is, or let's say where the road is leading. Still, if you would ask us the question today, there's no silver bullet yet when it comes to the future fuel and let's say reaching sustainability goals. I mean, when you look at our fleet nowadays, we have a mixture of, let's say, then when the new buildings will come in, of a methanol-ready vessel with an ammonia-ready vessel. But also we have LNG vessels on long-term charter on our fleet nowadays. And I think we are trying, let's say, multiple sources of fuel and to see, okay, which one will be basically the winner going forward, really to reach that net zero target in 2040.
But that's still an open question.
That's still an open question. And of course, it all boils down to prices. So at the moment, methanol is still much more expensive than heavy fuel oil. And yes, as much as we want the world to be greener, it also needs to be economically viable, and someone has to pay for it. So of course, we as a shipping line, we try to take our share, but at the end of the day, it's the customers who have to participate. So at the end of the day, money also plays a very important factor when it comes to sustainability.
Hi, it's David here from Breakbulk. Thanks for checking out Voices of Breakbulk Europe, our collaboration with PCP. For over 20 years, Breakbulk Europe has connected the global project cargo community, bringing over 11,000 professionals from 120 countries to Rotterdam. Make sure to register for your ticket online so you can join us at the Rotterdam Ahoy from June 16th to 18th. Enjoy the podcast and see you at Breakbulk Europe.
This series is sponsored by Rhenus Project Logistics, who deliver turnkey solutions across the project lifecycle. They specialize in managing complex cargo using a mix of transport modes, including sea, rail, air, and heavy haulage. With a strong global network, in-house engineering, and access to their own assets, including terminals, barges, and vessels, Rhenus helps reduce risk, improve efficiency, and maintain control throughout the supply chain. Find out more via the link in the description below. And in terms of decarbonisation, a couple of years ago, you said only about 5% of the demand for sustainable shipping was coming from the customers. Has that changed since you said that?
Yeah, my personal opinion is, and that, let's say, when it comes to sustainability, it should be a third of the share should come from the carrier or operator. Another third should come from the customer. And the last third should come from the regulatory authorities. When you look at the reality today, and also when you look at the geopolitical, let's say, turmoil at the moment in the world, maybe there's a little bit less focus on sustainability, unfortunately. And most of that drive comes now from regulatory authorities.
So you haven't seen a huge increase from the customers pushing you in that way?
Fortunately, we have some of the car and high and heavy customers. They are more open to participate in sustainability and also paying for, let's say, biofuel or willing to participate.
Yep.
Unfortunately, and that's maybe the backside of it, in the breakbulk industry, we have very limited customers who are asking for such a product, or also the willingness to participate in sustainability is still much, much lower than for the cars.
It's just not the priority.
Not yet. It's at the end of the day, it's price. And even if you talk to companies who produce, let's say, a green product, let's say you take the wind power manufacturers, still they would not. There's no extra budget to ship those wind components with a biofuel operator. The end of the day, it's who's the most competitive. Unfortunately, I would say, and then that still needs a little bit change of mindset, I would say, in the industry, especially in the breakbulk industry.
And perhaps you can tell me whether it's unique, but you've got what you described as a transparent approach where you list out decarbonisation charges separately, so you don't lump them all together as one rate. Tell us why you decided to do that and why that's so important.
I would say the driver for this is probably or are our car and high and heavy customers. We have always been taking a very transparent approach. I would say in that field of business, it's very important to show transparency. And I would say that then, of course, blends into our breakbulk customers as well. I know maybe most of the breakbulk customers, they just go for bottom line rates. So at the end of the day, they say, okay,
just want to see the price.
Exactly, show me the price. But I would say it's driven by the car customers, as mentioned before. And we also believe we will have an advantage showing this fair and say transparent way of where the costs are coming from. We have introduced a new buff formula. It's called Buff 2.0. And basically that buff is including already sustainable fuel elements. So part of what I mentioned earlier on LNG, it will consist of some, let's say, portions of methanol going forward, and also the biofuel we consume. So in essence, if a customer ships with our company, they already participate in, let's say, a more sustainable transportation.
And how widespread is that model of charging amongst your competitors? Do you know? What are most of them doing?
I'm not so aware of it, but I would say we always have been a leader, or let's say, a leader in sustainability. And certainly, I don't know of any other shipping line in the RoRo industry who are maybe having introduced this the way we have.
Okay, let's talk a bit about some other things that the company does. You also have port and terminal facilities. You've just taken over some operations at the port of Gothenburg, and perhaps you're going to increase some breakbulk handling there. Overall, what's your strategy in that area, and what's the additional advantage that you can offer your customers by having those ports and terminals?
Our strategy is really to offer the customer, let's say, an end-to-end solution, almost from the factory to the dealer. When it comes to the car side, and on the breakbulk side, it's maybe a little bit different. But we try to, let's say, offer as many services along the supply chain as possible. Also to have control over our operations, control over the people. It also includes then safety and security. And we try to do this in our, let's say, in our core markets. Yeah, we have terminals in Europe, in Gothenburg, in Zeebrugge, in Southampton. We do have a terminal in Baltimore. So we really try to establish terminals in our core markets and really offer customers just more than ocean.
And on that note, you also acquired Abnormal Load Services in the UK, ALS, Asset Light Company. Explain the rationale behind that. And can you see that that's maybe something that would happen again in the future, or was that a one-off?
Yeah, we have now fully integrated ALS. Also, the name has now been changed to Wallenius Wilhelmsen Supply Chain Solutions. It's part of our strategy to offer our breakbulk customers just more than ocean. We try to, I mean, it's something what our customers have been asking for. If we would be willing to offer, let's say, pre-carriages, terminal handling, as well as on-carriage services. And we try in an initial step just to have it as a supplement to our ocean business. And of course, we have a growth ambition to scale that operation, or let's say to scale that business model going forward. At the same time, I want to just highlight, most of our breakbulk customers are still freight forwarders.
Right.
And
so you've got a fine line to tread.
And we have to use a fine line. I mean, we do not want to go into direct competition with our project freight forwarders. We really see it as, let's say, an add-on service when we have, for example, contracts with OEMs directly. And sometimes even freight forwarders use our services because they are lacking an agent overseas. So there's kind of a win-win. But of course, it's a fine line, but certainly a field where we would like to grow a little bit further.
How do you see that boundary changing over the next few years? Because you see quite often shipping lines acquiring forwarders or heavy lift companies. Increasingly, one company doesn't just do this, they also want to do X, Y, and Z. How do you see that changing over the next few years?
Yeah, at the end of the day, I guess we as a shipping line, we talked about cargo segments in the beginning and that you make yourself, let's say, less dependent on just one. And that's a little bit also with the business model we just described here. You just would like to create a business model where you might, where you can maybe offer something than just more than your core product, just also to react to changing markets. I talked about how a sourcing shift is happening, which also means that your fleet, or let's say what you can offer, will have limitations. And let's say by offering a freight forwarding service, you might be available, or you might be in a position to offer to your customers than just more than ocean. You have this relationship, and maybe that the customer's business model hasn't changed, but the way you operate a fleet has changed. So you still want to offer something for your customer. And I think it's just, to placing, to have left just more options available and make your business model more resilient going forward.
And as I mentioned, we're recording this in the run-up to Breakbulk Europe, coming up in the next few weeks, 3-day event this year. Talk a bit about your involvement in the event. I know you've been heavily involved as on the advisory board. You're obviously exhibitors. Tell us what you've got out of the event that you can't replicate elsewhere.
Yeah, first of all, I'm really happy that we have it now with a 3 full-day event. I am all in favor for this. We had this the first time last year, which was so much nicer because we had so much more time to engage with customers. First of all, I think it's a great platform to network with existing customers and also future customers. You will be surprised that even customers from non-traditional breakbulk segments, even from the car industry and the high and heavy industry, they use now breakbulk as a platform to meet all their suppliers and, let's say, the RoRo lines, the terminals, which is really interesting. So I was saying the other day, it has really transformed more into like a maritime shipping conference, more general. So
it's become even more valuable for you.
Even more valuable. And then when it comes to breakbulk, we also have to acknowledge that maybe for the car side, we are the sharks in the ocean. So typically we don't have to tell BMW who we are. But on the breakbulk side, I mean, we still play a niche role. We want customers to think about us first when they have like a 334-ton generator as an inquiry. And I would say that that requires that you exhibit, that you show your capabilities, that you make sure that you just promote your service when you're a niche player, and just to make sure that customers have you on the list right away. So Breakbulk is very one of the most valued conferences and shows we have in Europe. And I'm really looking forward to this.
Just before we go, tell us a bit about you and when you're not thinking about RoRo shipping. What do you get up to here in Bremen?
Yeah, I love running. So for me, this is my mental break I can take. I would say I'm not doing it so much for staying fit. It's more like to staying fit mentally. Mm-hmm. Listening then to podcasts. So sometimes I just love running because I'm excited to listen to the next podcast series as a crew time or history. So this is what I'm really enjoying. Other than that, I try to go for a round of golf. I have a lovely family. a wife and a daughter, and we love to travel. So although I'm traveling a lot for business, I still enjoy traveling with the family. That really keeps me fresh and motivated.
Is this a good area to run? I can see on the picture here, it looks pretty flat.
It's beautiful. So we even have the chance to run in our breaks. We have a shower in the office.
Nice.
So when we when we lease that office, we made it mandatory that we have a shower. And now we have a running group here. And once or twice a week, we meet with a few colleagues and run along the Weser. So, which is beautiful. And
it's the river here.
Right, exactly, the river here. And it's a great way to push the reset button when you had a tough morning, and then you go for a run, and then you go into the afternoon with a fresh mindset.
Carsten, thanks ever so much for having us here in Bremen. Great to talk to you, and look forward to seeing you at Breakbulk.
Luke, thank you so much for the talk.
Thanks. This series of Project Cargo Professionals is supported by Procam Group, a leading integrated project logistics company in India, specializing in heavy haul, chartering, installation, and global forwarding. Find out more about them via the link in the description below, and thanks to Procam for their support.